Now the background on New Ultimates #1 and the real story with Tony, I feel like that read very much like a bookend to Superman Batman #25. I feel like those two, 26, yes, sorry. I feel like those two books really resonated with the same sort of tone there. Tony's been bouncing around as sort of the I don't care about life playboy in the Ultimate Universe, and I think that was a really great way to ground him and, I mean, obviously touch on your own personal voice there.
Again, you know, we all could go out to dinner tonight and we wouldn't all order the same meal. In fact, I'm not even sure we could all agree on the same restaurant. The interesting part about that was that I was trying to find a place for Tony's voice and for where the character was coming from that Mark had not explored. In this particular case, you know, I went looking for what was the thing. And Mark had introduced this idea that he'd had brain cancer. Brain cancer in particular, it was not what my son had, but brain cancer in particular is one of those things which almost is 100% of the time fatal. Right. And so knowing that, and knowing even just the way that Tony was first introduced, he was skiing down the side of Mount Everest. You know, this is a guy who clearly had decided, you know, his life was over, and so what I'm going to do is just go out and, you know, get killed any way I can.
What are you going to do on the last day of your life?
Exactly.
Sort of thing?
You know, I didn't want to put it completely in anybody's face, but at the same time, you know, I wanted to tell the story of what was going on in Spin's life. I think I absolutely had told the story of what chemo was like from Sam's point of view, my son. And the Chinese restaurant story is a true story.
I assumed as much, yeah.
Now, as much as that worked for you, be my guest and go out and Google away, and you will find people that are saying, enough. You know what? I appreciate, I'm not trying to be a hard-hearted guy. I appreciate that Jeph Loeb had a tragedy in his life. I do not need to read about it every time I pick up a Jeph Loeb comic. Which again, you know, that kind of generalization is the sort of thing where I want to go, okay guys, I've told that story now twice.
Right.
And I have done, I can't tell you how many hundreds of comics. So I appreciate the fact that you've been offended for some reason. And you know, if you want your $3.95 back, please contact me and I'll see what I can do about it. Yeah. It's like I said, some people are going to respond to it. I'm glad you did, but I also do look at the work from the point of view of, you know, I have Arthur Adams and Frank Cho, and guys, you know what? Turn them into color forms. Just tear all my stuff off of there, and just look at the pages, and you'll have the best time ever. When I go and read my stack of comics, I just want to read them and enjoy them. What the question that I'm sort of curious about is that if you're reviewing any of the top 20 books, and every single month you're going, I hate this, I hate this, I hate the Avengers, I hate Blackest Night, I hate Green Lantern, I hate Iron Man, I hate Thor, I hate Hulk, I hate Marvel, I hate DC. I'm like, I don't know what you're doing. You're not then reading comics. You're reading a specific section of it, and I think that's great, but I'm not clear why you're then reading this, because that's your world. Talk to me a little bit about that, about how people continue to review things that are clearly not their taste.
I think for me, one of the biggest ones that I can think of right now is the Uncanny X-Men. I have not cared for Matt Fraction's work on that, but X-Men Volume 2, #1 was the first comic book I ever really read. I read the X-Men every month because I wanted to know what was happening to the X-Men. I can't walk away from them at this point. So every month I read them with the hope that this is the month that I'm going to start enjoying the book again, that there's going to be something that I really love. And right now, I've happened onto that with Second Coming. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I will read a comic book because I feel like it's something big that's happening that we have to cover, and one of us has to pick up that book, and if it's not anything that any of us reads, You know, if nobody else wants to, I'll take the bullet. As someone who does the reviews, I think that's how we get into those sorts of situations where, you know, either it's something that you feel like you have to do. There are definitely some people out there who do it just because they like to bitch.
As I've always said to people, and my friends know this, like, you can, you know, throw pies at me all day long. You throw pies at my friends, you have a problem with me. And it's generally often when I read.
I didn't mean what I said about Matt Fraction. Don't get me.
But it is funny because, as you were talking, I was like, I had to sort of hold myself back from going, well, then I don't understand why you're reading the book. Like, then just please stop reading it right now and do me and Matt a favor, and that's what will happen. And I do reach out periodically. I tend to reach out more when I read a review of somebody that has gotten it, to say, I read this and I really appreciate the fact that you understand what we were going for and what we're trying to do. I think it's really hard to reach out to somebody who has just, you know, laid a big turd on your front lawn and then run away to go, gee, thanks for the fertilizer, I needed that.
And you know that in most of those situations, no matter what you say, you're not going to sway them. They're still going to...
It's not. They've left the poop there for you to enjoy. You know, now with everybody tweeting every 4 seconds, that you can basically just say, I think Jeff John sucks, and suddenly it's, you know, on 4 million boards, you know, 20 minutes later. And by the way, I love Jeff. You know, our world is getting smaller and smaller, you know, just in terms of being able to touch the professionals and conventions and doing that kind of stuff, that I do always find it very odd. In every comic, there is something to appreciate. Mm-hmm. The amount of work that goes into a page, when I look at, particularly my guys, when I look at something that like Frank is doing, or I look at something that Arthur's doing, and you look at the amount of cobblestones that are in the ground, or the rivets that are in Iron Man's costume, or whatever it is, that amount of time times 30 or 22 or whatever it is that there it is. Again, I give all the credit in the world to Marvel Editorial, because my attitude is I'm amazed that we ever get a comic out. And you know, it just is one of those things that I'm so lucky to work in this field, and I am such a big fan of this field, that I am glad that there are as many good books that are out there, and as talented guys that are out there. It's a very special time right now. You know, I do think that the introduction of particularly the Marvel app on the iPad and the combination of the number of movies that are coming out, that we are no longer a niche world, right? You know, we are absolutely telling, you know, the modern day mythos of our generation, and you know, the fact that people know who Iron Man is, to me, is completely mind-blowing.
He's on my room key. My room key for the hotel. He's on the room key. We saw that,
and I gotta tell you, when I came in, the woman who checked me in, who had no idea who I was, said, "These are the most fun room keys that I've ever seen, and I've worked here for 6 years." And I'm looking at it going, "Yeah, it's a picture of Iron Man."
Right.
But it's just a cool time to be in comics.
Excellent. Jeff, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Hopefully you have enough stuff for 9 years.